Everything you have ever been told about power is a decoy. You were taught that the loudest person controls the room, that the most aggressive person wins the negotiation, that the one who dominates the conversation is the one who dominates the outcome. None of this is true. The person who actually controls the room is almost never the loudest one in it. They are frequently the quietest, the one in the corner, the one who speaks last and least, and yet somehow ends every meeting having gotten exactly what they came for. You have been in rooms with these people. You just did not notice them. That was the point. Because the highest form of power is not the power that announces itself. It is the power that operates beneath the surface of what everyone else can see, moving people, shaping decisions, manufacturing outcomes, while every person in the room believes they arrived at their conclusions freely. This is psychological warfare, and the masters of it are not warlords or dictators. They are the patient, strategic, invisible operators that psychologists call Machiavellians. By the end of this video, you will understand how they do it, and you will never sit in a meeting, a negotiation, or a dinner table the same way again. Let me start with the single principle that separates the Machiavellian from everyone else. The narcissist wants to be seen dominating. The psychopath does not care whether they are seen, but the Machiavellian wants specifically not to be seen, because invisibility is their greatest weapon. Think about what visibility costs you. The moment a room perceives you as the person trying to control it, the room begins to resist you. People brace. They question your motives. They form quiet alliances against you. Your every move is now interpreted through the lens of your ambition. The Machiavellian refuses to pay this cost. They understand that the person perceived as harmless is granted access that the person perceived as powerful is denied. So they cultivate the appearance of harmlessness. They seem agreeable, deferential, uninterested in control. And behind that mask, they run the room. Have you ever watched someone get exactly what they wanted while appearing to want nothing at all? That is not luck. That is craft. That is the first law of psychological warfare. The strongest position in any room is the one no one is watching. Now let me show you the actual mechanics, the specific moves. Because psychological control of a group is not magic. It is a sequence of techniques deployed with patience that anyone willing to study them can learn to recognize, and anyone willing to practice them can learn to use. The first technique is controlling the frame. Every conversation, every meeting, every negotiation begins with an invisible act that almost no one notices. Someone defines what the conversation is about, what the real question is, what counts as success, what the terms are. Whoever performs this act has already won before a single argument is made. Imagine two executives walking into a meeting about a failed project. The first one opens by saying, "We need to figure out who is responsible for this." The second one opens by saying, "We need to figure out what we learned and how we move forward." Same meeting, same facts, completely different outcomes, because the frame determines the entire trajectory of everything that follows. The Machiavellian arrives at every important interaction having already decided what the frame will be, and they deploy it in the first 60 seconds, casually, as if merely stating the obvious. By the time everyone else realizes a frame has been set, they are already operating inside it. The frame is the battlefield, and the Machiavellian chooses the battlefield before the battle begins. Watch for this. The next time you are in a meeting that seems to be flowing naturally toward a particular conclusion, ask yourself, who defined what this meeting was about? That person is running the room, and they may have said very little since. The second technique is information asymmetry. The Machiavellian understands something that ordinary people constantly forget. Information is not just useful, it is the raw material of power. So they gather relentlessly, and they disclose strategically. In any group, the Machiavellian works to become the person who knows the most. They cultivate relationships across every faction. They listen more than they speak. They ask questions that seem like curiosity but are actually reconnaissance. They know who is aligned with whom, who resents whom, who wants what, who fears what. And crucially, they make sure that no one else has this complete picture. Because when you are the only person in the room who understands the full map of relationships, motives, and tensions, you can move pieces that everyone else cannot even see. You can predict reactions before they happen. You can position your proposals to align with hidden interests. You can diffuse opposition before it forms because you knew it was coming. The person with the most complete information is not just better informed, they are operating in a different dimension than everyone else. They see the whole board. Everyone else sees only their own corner of it. Have you ever wondered how certain people always seem 3 steps ahead? They are not smarter than you. They simply gathered what you did not bother to gather. The third technique is the manufactured consensus. This is one of the most powerful and least understood moves in all of psychological warfare. Human beings are herd animals. We are wired, at a deep evolutionary level, to align with what we perceive as the majority view. This instinct kept our ancestors alive. It also makes us catastrophically easy to manipulate. The Machiavellian exploits this by manufacturing the appearance of consensus before a decision is ever formally made. They do not argue their position openly in the meeting. That would be crude. Instead, before the meeting, they speak privately to each key person. They plant the same idea in each conversation, framed to appeal to that specific person's interests. They let each person believe the idea is partly their own. By the time the group convenes, the decision has already been made. Not in the room. In the hallways, the private lunches, the quiet conversations that preceded it. The meeting is merely theater, a ceremony to ratify a consensus that was engineered in advance. And everyone leaves believing they participated in a free and open decision. This is how the most important decisions in governments, corporations, and institutions are actually made. Not in the visible forum, in the invisible pre-negotiation that the Machiavellian conducted while everyone else was waiting for the official meeting. The room where the decision appears to happen is almost never the room where the decision actually happens. The fourth technique is emotional detachment as leverage. Now, if you have made it this far, you already understand more about how rooms are truly controlled than most people learn in a lifetime. But the most important technique is coming right now, because everything I have described depends on one internal capacity that most people do not have: the ability to feel nothing in the moment that matters most. Here is the principle. In any high-stakes interaction, the person who is most emotionally invested is the person with the least power. Emotion is a tell. Emotion is a lever. Emotion is the crack through which you can be moved. The person who desperately wants the deal will overpay for it. The person who is angry will make the mistake their opponent was hoping for. The person who is anxious will fill silences they should have let hang. The person who needs to be liked will concede things they should have held. The Machiavellian has trained themselves out of this, not out of emotion entirely, but out of displaying it, and out of being controlled by it in the moments that matter. They can want something intensely and appear completely indifferent to it. They can be provoked and show nothing. They can sit in a silence that makes everyone else squirm, perfectly comfortable, because they know that whoever breaks the silence first has revealed their hand. This detachment is their superpower, because it makes them unreadable. And an unreadable person cannot be manipulated, cannot be predicted, cannot be moved. They can only be reacted to, which means they are always the one setting the terms. Have you ever lost a negotiation because you let the other person see how much you wanted it? That is the lesson. In the domain of power, the person who feels least controls most. Let me now show you what all of these techniques have in common, because the deepest insight of this entire video is hidden in the pattern. Controlling the frame, information asymmetry, manufactured consensus, emotional detachment. Every one of these is a form of patience deployed as a weapon. The person who controls the frame prepared before the meeting. The person with information gathered over weeks and months. The person who manufactured consensus did the work in advance, quietly, one conversation at a time. The person with emotional detachment trained that capacity over years. This is the Machiavellian secret that no one tells you. Their dominance is not built in the moment of confrontation. It is built in all the invisible moments before the confrontation, while everyone else was waiting for the game to begin. By the time the visible contest starts, the Machiavellian has already won it. The meeting, the negotiation, the confrontation. These are not where they compete. These are where they collect. The impulsive person plays the game when the game is announced. The Machiavellian plays it in all the silent hours before anyone else even knew a game was being played. This is the long game, and the long game always beats the short game. Not sometimes, always. Because the short game is played in a span of minutes, where luck and emotion dominate. The long game is played across weeks and months, where preparation and patience compound into an advantage that the impulsive can never overcome. Whoever can wait wins. Now, I want to speak to something directly, because I know how this sounds. This sounds cold, calculating. It sounds like the toolkit of exactly the kind of person you have learned throughout this channel to protect yourself from. You are right to feel that. But here is the truth that changes everything. These techniques are not evil. They are simply how influence works at the highest level. The Machiavellian uses them to dominate, extract, and control others for their own gain. But the same techniques, in the hands of a person of genuine character, become something else entirely. The ethical person who controls the frame can steer a room away from blame and toward solutions. The ethical person with superior information can protect their team from threats they never saw coming. The ethical person who builds consensus quietly can unite a fractured group behind a genuinely good decision. The ethical person with emotional detachment can stay calm and clear when everyone else is drowning in reactivity. The techniques do not have a morality. The morality lives in the person wielding them. And here is the danger of refusing to learn them. If good people decide that these tools are beneath them, that strategy is manipulation, that patience is scheming, that reading a room is dishonest, then they surrender every room they enter to the people who did not refuse. Which means the rooms get run by Machiavellians who use these tools for domination, while the ethical sit quietly, believing their virtue will somehow protect them, and watching the outcomes get decided by people who understood the game they refused to play. You do not have to become a predator to learn how predators operate. But if you refuse to understand them, you guarantee that the predators will always control the rooms you sit in. The choice is not between being good and being strategic. The choice is between being strategically good or being ineffectively good and irrelevant. So let me leave you with this. The next time you walk into a room that matters, remember that the real contest is already over before anyone speaks. It was decided in the preparation, in the frame that was set, in the information that was gathered, in the consensus that was quietly built, in the emotions that were mastered. You can be the person who walks in unprepared, reacting to a game that was rigged before you arrived. Or you can be the person who did the invisible work, who set the frame, gathered the map, built the alignment, and mastered themselves, so that by the time the room convenes, you are simply collecting what you already earned in the silence. The loud person thinks they are dominating the room. The strategic person knows the room was decided long before anyone raised their voice. Which one are you going to be? The world is run by people who understood this. Every institution you have ever been part of was shaped by the quiet operators who saw the whole board while everyone else stared at their own corner. You now know what they know. The only question left is what you will do with it. If this video showed you something you had never seen before, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach the people who need this message most. Subscribe if you want more content that pulls back the curtain on strategy, influence, and the real mechanics of power. And in the comments below, I want to know, have you ever watched someone quietly run a room while appearing to do nothing at all? What did they do that you only understood later? Your reflection could be exactly what someone else needed to read. In my next video, I'm going to reveal the specific verbal patterns that Machiavellian operators use to control conversations in real time. The exact phrases, the strategic questions, the calculated silences that let them steer any dialogue toward the outcome they wanted from the start. You do not want to miss it. Until then, stay awake, stay aware. And remember, the room was never won by the one who spoke the loudest. It was won by the one who prepared in the silence. Prepare in the silence, and you will never lose a room again.